Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
Very well, Alex. It's good to see you.
You too. Can you hear and see me okay?
Yes,
Okay.
I can see you.
Okay,
Absolutely.
great. So do you want to wait a few minutes or just get started?
I mean, if it depends on you.
Okay.
Any protocols to follow, any other thing? Otherwise,
Uh,
we
no,
jump into it.
I think we can just start in, so I'll just do the intro now.
Okay,
Okay,
absolutely. Let's get started.
great. So hello everyone and welcome to the session. My name is Alex Medeiros and I'll be acting as moderator for today. I'd like to thank you all for joining us. Thank you to Olutoyin for speaking at our event. So I'm just going to give you a brief background on Olutoyin here, and then we can start. So Olutoyin is the founding partner and CEO at Invcap Corporation, an investment advisory firm with partners in Nigeria and Canada. Invcap recently completed an investment advisory deal in Nigeria, phase one of Splash World, which is a water park located at Nkokozi, Akita in southwest Nigeria, and apologies if I mispronounced that. Invcap is a lead investor at Entrepreneurs Point, a co-work incubator in Canada. Olutoyin's experience in the investment sector spans over 23 years. She managed Intercontinental Group's fund portfolio of over 8 billion and rose to become group treasurer in 2006. Olutoyin now supervises Invicap's investment strategy. In the nonprofit sector, Olutoyin serves as an advisor with the African Expert Network, a Washington, D.C. group of investment experts drawn from the global financial sector to advise investors on Africa. In 2019, Olutoyin was inducted into the Global Leaders Forum by Women of Influence Canada. She serves on many boards in Africa and North America. Olutoyin has founded many nonprofit initiatives and social enterprises, including Casa Foundation, Afro Investors, Friends of Africa, and EP Academy, all in Canada. She's the recipient of many awards, including the Disciparan Achiever Award in Nigeria, Women of Courage Award in Canada, African Impact Leadership Award at African Women Forum in New York, Superwoman Achievers Award in Canada, and many others. Olutoyin is a public speaker and has spoken on forums including Voice America, TEDx, Amazon, Invest in Africa Forum, and more. She's authored several publications, including the New York Times top pick, Advancing Beyond the Ceiling. Olutoyin is an adjunct professor and teaches entrepreneurship in universities and colleges. Olutoyin has a doctorate in management from University of Maryland Global Campus and is a graduate of Wharton School's Advancement Management Program, IMD Louisiane's Business Marketing, and Lagos Business School's Senior Management Program. So we can get started now if you'd like. Do you want to say anything, Olutoyin?
No, it's good to be here, and thank you for having me over, Alex, and your group. I hope it's been exciting so far. I haven't been opportunity to join a few of the sessions, but I'm glad to be here right now. Thank you.
Yeah, we're glad to have you. Thank you for coming. So we will be doing a short Q&A session at the end of the session here, but right now we're just going to focus on some chatting with Olutoyin here. So if you're ready to start, I'll just get into the first question.
Yes.
Okay. So these are perilous and precarious times. In the history of the world economy, we've not had a recession like this since 1870. Can you share some thoughts on CFO's role in these times?
Well, thank you so much for that question. That's a valid one for these times. The numbers can and as you're aware, let's just start with those numbers. The U.S. budget deficit is trending about 744 billion as we speak. Where it's expected to peak at about 3.7 trillion by the end of the year. And these are the numbers. These are the types of numbers we're hearing right now, and that I retrieve from as mooted by the World Bank and the Congressional Budget Office. In Canada, as we speak, Canada is trending a budget deficit of about 343 billion, with an expectation that this will also peak at about $1 trillion, moving towards almost $1 trillion by the first quarter of next year. A lot of this has been spent and expended on about on the health sector, safety measures, and so on. And so these are the types of numbers we're hearing. And that's why you hear categorical statements like, we've never seen it this way before. This has never happened since the Second World War, and statements like that. So it's really bad. It's really bad. But the fact remains that world leaders are looking to reopen the economy. Some economies are opening steadily and gradually. And so the expectation is that the economies will reopen and business recovery becomes, it becomes imperative. A lot of people are looking forward to that. The top goal then for CFOs should be business recovery, becoming business partners, and joining up with the C-suite executives to ensure that whatever deals need to be made at this time, whatever recovery efforts and strategies need to be in place, they must be a part of it. CFOs who hitherto were seen as the gatekeepers, the regulatory compliance officers and so on, then must be at the front line, at the forefront of actually rebuilding and remolding and reshaping the corporations, whether whether they're small businesses, whether they're established businesses, whether they're large corporations in any sector, manufacturing, retail, and so on. The CFOs must actually be at the forefront of all of this. Of course, when you quickly talk about, let's quickly talk about economic recovery. The road to business recovery can actually be very tough, as we all know. It's really been tough in the past 4 or 5 months, as we've seen. And a lot of companies are right now in, like survival mode. But what is important is that with the CFOs at the forefront of all of this, they know that they have partners in those CFOs and not watchdogs or gatekeepers that can make deals happen.
Okay, great. So my next question for you would be, can you share some of the ideas that CFOs should be running with at this time?
Right. I will start actually from the idea that CFOs all this time are known to be gatekeepers, to be, what towers and so on. Right now, the CFOs should actually be focusing. While they are known as gatekeepers of the corporation, I mean, of course, by gatekeeper, I mean the access point to the organization. They are the ones who know that they understand the books, they understand what's in the books, they understand the regulatory requirements, in reporting requirements, and so on. And they understand the mind of the CEO and the staff and suppliers and so on. So they are actually the heartbeat of the organization. They've always been so. However, at a time like this, when we're talking about business recovery, it becomes imperative, it becomes critical for CFOs to take on the role, that additional role of the frontliner, as it were, the deal maker, as it were. Usually, we usually crack some jokes where, in some of the organizations I've worked in over the years, that CFOs actually have a propensity to actually break deals. They said this is a deal breaker because, they spend all their lives, trying, obviously, I mean, for obvious reasons, that's their role. They need to ensure regulatory compliance. They need to keep the books, reporting requirements, all must be met. However, in a time of recovery, it becomes very critical and imperative for the CFO to take on an additional role or wear that hat where they begin to actually push transactions. What should get out of what should actually come out of the balance sheet? Which deals should we should we pursue at this time? Which acquisitions should we be thinking of? If the organization is still buoyant enough to do that, or if there is additional capital, or they've built up their war chest, additional capital over the years. So this is the time acquisitions must be made. This is the time to advise the C-suite executives on deals that should actually, be pursued vigorously. They understand this, they know this. And so coming from the CFOs at this time is actually a plus. It will be an advantage for the organization because then C-suite executives and other stakeholders in the organization understand that they have the back, they have the support of the CFOs. And so this is very critical at a time like this. Another part that the CFO should be playing, another role that the CFO should be playing at a time like this, is to actually directly interact with the staff, suppliers. They may actually take the initiative to begin to interface directly with logistics suppliers and providers. In the process, they make deals happen. They begin to show the organization that they not only are supportive of the initiatives and the marketing strategies of, the C-suite in line with the goals of the organization, but that they are also a part of it fully, not because they've not always been sitting, it or at board meetings, but because even when they sit at those board meetings before then or at senior executive meetings before then, they see as, perhaps sometimes the watchdog. But now, with the CFOs making suggestions, initiating ideas as to how the organization can be fully recovered and how the organization can thrive. This goes a long way to drumming support and to ensuring that they get the buy-in of all stakeholders and their colleagues.
Okay, cool. So I just wanted to give a quick reminder to anyone watching that we will be doing a Q&A session as well after we're done this sort of conversation here. So if you have any questions, please put them in chat. We'll be able to see them and I can read them off to Olutoyin here. So I'm not sure if you can see the chat there on the right-hand side, but if anyone there has any questions, just put them in there. So to get to the next question, what planning and strategic measures should be adopted now, and are they adequate?
Well, it's this is the time, I believe, for CFOs to begin to implement operational changes. In a time of recovery, with the type of pandemic and the crisis, and the consequences and implications that we've seen so far, we see that with the CFO, working with a strategic team and so on to transition the firm into a fully operational firm with the kind of gaps that we've seen in the last couple of weeks, this is the time for the CFO to be at the forefront of such strategic measures. What kind of operational changes should an organization be implementing right now? What kind of changes, what kind of divestment, in investments that were made before now? Perhaps those investments are no longer as profitable, or the profit expectations have waned. This is a time for the CFO to actually have reviewed the books and initiate meetings to make a briefing, and to strategically lead those sessions to ensure that everybody understands the position of the books. I mean by the books, the balance sheet, what reporting requirements are there, which transactions should be pursued, which ones should be divested, and so on. In a time of pandemic is actually the time when it's much easier to implement changes, because stakeholders are usually more receptive of changes because the market, it's a downtown. Downtown, the market is more accepting of things like this. Even unions, I mean, they are more understanding. Regulatory authorities are more understanding. So although some of those changes would have been unpopular were they initiated a few months back, a few months ago, but now is the time. It's up, it's like actually being opportunistic to take the opportunity, as it were, and implement those changes, whether they have to do with divestment, whether they have to do with, although unpopular, but if they have to actually re-engineer the organization, let a few people go, and things like that. This is the time, and the CFO is actually should be in the driver's seat of those changes. Changes that have to do with which locations should be retained, what kind of number of workforce should be maintained, what kind of additional partners should actually be allowed to come on board. This is the time for the CFO to initiate those changes and those strategies. The question is, what kind of changes can an organization take part-time? Organizations, and so it will differ from one organization to the other. The kind of changes that will be required in the manufacturing sector or might be different from that which is expected in the retail sector. A small-sized organization will perhaps not require so many changes because they have not really been badly hit. You know what I mean? And sometimes it depends also. The changes that must be implemented and effected by each of the organizations is dependent on the access, the capital that is available. What kind of access do organizations have at this time? They enjoying some of the emergency reliefs, the capital, and so on. It might be the time also for the CFO to push for new products. I mean, of course, there are specific areas for that. The chief marketing officer of the organization, the chief operating officer of the organization will be directly in charge of those things. However, the CFO will always drum up support. They need the support of the CFO to actually not only initiate, but to execute the plans. And these are some of the roles that must be embarked upon by the CFO of the organization.
Okay, that's very interesting. So it's sort of become where the CFO's role, it's more, I guess, crucial that their sort of thoughts and opinions are listened to more, right?
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely.
So I think you sort of covered this a little bit already, but the next question I have for you is, should CFOs target acquisitions now, and what strategy should they use?
Okay. In terms of acquisition,
I was just going to say, I think you might have covered this a little bit already, but I'm not sure if you wanted to go into more detail on it.
Yes, absolutely. I would. I can expand a little more on that. You
Great.
know, the truth of the matter is, in a pandemic, by the time you're getting out of a pandemic like this, or a crisis, a similar crisis, the truth of the matter is that it's usually very common to see that the equity market, the stocks have come down, the valuations are recovering after a pandemic like this. They begin to recover faster, much faster, because then people begin to see the light at the end of the tunnel, as it were. And so there's a propensity for the market to recover faster post-pandemic. And this is usually based on some specific economic fundamentals. And so, the government itself will have initiated a lot of policies, a lot of policies to drive the market, to make the market stronger, and to strengthen the purchasing power of the populace. And so, acquisition-minded companies, for instance, depending on the sector. Acquisition-minded companies, for instance, the CFO in a company like that, if they refuse to take advantage of such opportunities, they might miss the market growth, the growth that is happening in the market. And so what is important for CFOs at a time like this, it will be to watch out and to trend the market and to exactly identify companies, ventures, and partners that they might be in a position to acquire. That is one part of it for targeting acquisition. The other part is there's also a huge opportunity for partnerships. And so in a partnership situation, companies that ordinarily a CFO or the C-suite executives might have been targeting even before the pandemic, before the crisis, this might be the time for the CFO to actually encourage the C-suite executive or the CEO himself directly to begin talks with partners, potential partners. Who should we be partnering with? How should we go about the partnership strategy? Because you must understand that a lot of organizations, a lot of companies, whether established or whether new or in their growth stage, must have suffered a major hit. But if indeed a lot of companies have suffered a major hit, a lot of them are on their way out, a lot of them are still hanging in there. But there are some companies that they always have their survival strategies. And the reason they already have the survival strategies that kicked in is because of their contingency planning. And so there are companies that have always adopted the contingency planning of, if the market shuts down on us in the last 1 year, in 2 years, in 5 years, in the medium term, or in the long term, what shall we do? There are still companies like that, and they're still standing very strong. Although we have reported cases of bankruptcy and so on, companies, large organizations, Fortune 500 companies, in fact, in the fashion industry, that have actually filed for bankruptcy at this point. A lot of them are on their way out. A lot of retailers are on their way out. A lot of eateries, restaurants, food and companies in the food and beverage sector are already on their way out. However, for a discerning CFO, this might be the right time, depending on the sector. Might be retail, may not be manufacturing, depending. This might be the right time to identify some of those companies to take over. Remember, a few of these companies already have made a very good name. So they already have clients that are just waiting for them to reopen. However, some of them are their way out. A discerning group, an organization that is well structured and that has the required war chest. By war chest, I mean, they built up some capital over the time, over the years. Or they may be in a better position to acquire those companies right now. What are the benefits in this acquisition? The fact that they'll be buying very cheap. The companies are already on their way out. And so they have a good opportunity. It might be advantageous for them, and they might be buying very cheap. And the good thing with that is there is a huge component of clients. Clients are there, they're waiting. And so all that they require is to have the right management structure in place, the driving policy, and the team to run effectively and market and remarket the brand. And so these are the types of initiatives that should actually, when driven by the marketing officer, the chief marketing officer, maybe the CMO or the chief operating officer, the CFO becomes the partner that actually drives such an initiative for business recovery overall and for sustainability of such organizations.
Okay, great. So I'm just going to get to, and again, if anyone has any questions, please put them in chat. We just have about under 10 minutes here. We have about 9 minutes left. We end at 3:30. So if you have any questions, please put them in chat. I'm just going to get to one of the last questions we have here. So, and I believe you might have covered it a little bit just now, but if you wanted to maybe go over a little more, should you restart conversations with partners?
Absolutely. Absolutely, I would say. One, because of some of the reasons I mentioned earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you should. But more importantly, some of the discussions that perhaps were put on hold, some of the strategic alliances. Every company has some, some role model companies, some firm that they're aspiring to become like, maybe it's within the top 10 in their industry or in their sector, and so on. A lot of those companies, like I mentioned earlier, are now affected. And so this is the time to restart conversations, maybe with some of them. Perhaps they were in conversations before, but those ones that are required in the books, there are those companies that you just want, whether they are companies that are suppliers, that are partners, that are strategic alliances that you are looking to make. Those companies a firm is desirous of having on their books. This is the time for CFOs to actually initiate those calls.
Mm-hmm.
And they are initiating the calls at CEO level. They possibly would, for obvious reasons, possibly would not be those ones initiating the calls directly to the client, but to the CEO. The books are very clear. What the balance sheet can take is clear. What the reporting requirements are also very clear. And so it behoves on the CFO to actually alert the CEO and his C-suite members to initiate talks, to initiate meetings, so that the strategic alliances that are required for the success and the full recovery of operations of the business can begin. This is the time to do that.
Okay. Yeah. So just take advantage sort of the time now and sort of start getting in touch with those people that maybe you couldn't have before, or that, the talks has sort of dried up with.
Yeah, absolutely. And you must also remember that in line with the economics of the market, a lot of companies will actually be adopting some of the approaches, some of the strategies that I just reiterated here over and over. So you must understand, it's almost like what you call a rat race. We're in the market to make money. We're businesses. We're looking to make income. And so what exactly should we do to make money? But of course, we're talking recovery. So what will help us get to a stage where we're so stable and we become very stable, and then to such an extent that we begin to profit from those initiatives that we make right now. The initiatives that we make right now will determine the sustainability of the business in the long run.
Yeah.
And that's why it's important and it's desirous that companies that are already in the market, that already have a known name, they have a brand, they are well known. These are the types of companies that CFOs should actually be targeting right now, because they are already, they're already on their way out. Some have already filed, some are already looking for a boost, capital, partnership, brands, and so on. this is the time to actually make a go for those companies, and their names actually ultimately might actually boost the profile of the
Your own
company.
company?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay, great. So I just had actually a question I just thought of, and now it seems to slip my mind. Apologies for that.
Yes.
I was just going to say, so yeah, like now is the time to definitely be thinking long term as well, not just in terms of sort of recovering in the immediate moment, but thinking like how can you plan your recovery to affect you long term that you ultimately grow.
Yes,
Mhm.
absolutely. This is the time. Yeah, I mean, the idea actually is, I mean, you can picture yourself and say, who is that person? Who is that officer? Who is that go-to person when
Mhm.
you're looking for ideas on how to meet regulatory requirements, how to comply, how to make sure the organization does not fall, or the organization is secure, is safe, meeting all regulatory requirements, and so on. These are the general roles of the CFO, compliance, reporting, and all of that. And so the CFO, generally speaking, will be the last person, and that's just my experience, speaking from experience. The CFO will generally be the last person you go to bounce ideas off about
Mhm.
how to move the company forward, how to expand, how to grow, how to ensure that the business itself is acquiring a lot more, and all of those things. And that's why generally they are called the gatekeepers of the organization. The well-being of the organization is what is paramount to the CFO. That's what he's looking forward to, and that's what he or she has responsibility for. In a business recovery, when the CFO adds this additional role and wears this other cap or hat of ensuring that the business not only survives, but that the business begins to thrive. Not because, of course, the interest of the business is not paramount to him or her, but because he must ensure that, first and foremost, regulatory requirements is what is paramount to the CFO. Now, when he wears the second hat and begins to ensure that business thrives, then there is an open door for the organization to begin to flourish, not just survive, but begin to flourish. And that is what we mean when people begin to refer to the CFO as a frontliner instead of just the gatekeeper. There is no one size that fits all of this in all that we have said here. There are many approaches, and the different approach might apply to an organization in a different sector. What is
Mhm.
important is that all adjustments and all decisions that are being taken would involve a lot of moving parts, a lot of moving parts here and there. What ideas will the CMO and his entire team have? What is important at the end of the day to determine the strategy and the methodology and the implementation process is that the CFO is open and is accepting. He's open to accepting all the ideas that are mooted, that are discussed, so
Yeah.
that at the end of the day, there is they understand that they have the buy-in, as it were, the buy-in of that CFO, and then every all hands are on deck to ensure
Mhm.
the recovery of the organization. So that's that new hat that the CFO must wear, to my mind, that the CFO must wear at this time for an organization to fully recover from this pandemic and then be on the way to profitability again.
Okay. Well, so it looks like we just have actually just about a minute left. So I'm just going to check here if there's any questions. Um, doesn't look like we have anything in chat. So I think we are about to finish up here. If anyone does have any quick questions they want to put in, we do have about a minute or two left here. So feel free to put them in the chat on the right-hand side. But if not, I want to thank you, Olutoyin, for joining me today. Thank you for coming to our event, and thank you for sharing some very interesting strategies and ideas on this topic. So thank you again.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Alex. I really appreciate
No
you
problem.
having me over. Look forward to seeing you again.
Yeah, thank you for coming. I hope to see you again on another
All
event.
right. Thank you.
Okay. Bye, everyone.
Bye.